Ancient Rome did not build its empire through luck. It rose through iron will, discipline, and blood. At the heart of that empire stood not machines of bronze or marble, but men, the Roman legions. They were the living engines of conquest, trained beyond endurance, marching across continents, from burning deserts to frozen mountains. Many would never return home, yet none broke formation. They were bound by something stronger than fear, duty. But how did Rome create soldiers so feared, so precise, and so loyal that entire civilizations trembled at their advance? To understand that, we must trace the journey from the moment a farmer became a recruit to the sacred oath that transformed him into a weapon of the empire. From militia to machine. In the earliest days of the Republic, Rome's army was not professional. It was a citizen militia. Every free man had an obligation to fight for his city, to leave his plow, his shop, his family, whenever Rome called. There was no pay, no reward. Each man bought his own weapons and armor. When the campaign ended, the army dissolved. The soldiers went home to harvest their fields and rebuild their lives until the next war began. This worked when Rome was small, a single city defending its borders. But as the Republic expanded, conquering new lands, suppressing rebellions, and guarding frontiers thousands of kilometers away, that system began to collapse. Rome needed something else. Not volunteers, not citizens with swords. It needed a standing army. And so, by the late Republic and the dawn of the Empire, the legions were reborn, forged into a permanent, professional force. Emperor Augustus finalized this transformation. He offered soldiers regular pay, campaign bonuses, and land grants after retirement. Military life became not a duty, but a career. For the poor, it was a path to wealth, status, and even citizenship. But loyalty shifted, no longer to the Senate or to the Republic, but to the commander himself. A soldier fought for the man who paid him, and ultimately for the emperor who ruled all. The Legion, Rome's war machine. Rome's genius was organization. A legion was more than an army. It was a perfectly tuned war machine of about 5,000 men, divided into 10 cohorts. Each cohort was split into smaller maniples and centuries, commanded by experienced officers who could execute complex maneuvers in seconds. The result was an army that moved like a single organism, able to react, reform, and strike with deadly precision. At its height, Rome commanded around 150,000 legionaries and 180,000 auxiliary troops, stationed across an empire that stretched from the cold moors of Britannia to the burning sands of Egypt. Feeding, arming, and supplying this force was a challenge equal to war itself. But Rome mastered logistics like no other civilization. A vast network of roads, depots, and supply lines connected the empire, allowing orders from Rome to be executed anywhere with clockwork precision. Becoming a legionary. Before a man could wear the armor of Rome, he had to earn it. Recruiting officers, conquistadores, traveled through cities and villages seeking young men between 18 and 23. But youth wasn't enough. They examined every detail: strength, posture, health, family reputation, literacy, and even temperament. Only free-born men could enlist. Criminals and slaves were rejected, unless Rome was desperate. Men with trades, blacksmiths, carpenters, tailors, were valuable, as the legions relied heavily on their craft. Those who could read or calculate might find themselves serving as scribes or record keepers, and those with noble lineage had a chance to rise higher. Once accepted, the recruit received a metal identification tag, an early form of the modern dog tag. Losing it meant disgrace. From that moment, he ceased to be a civilian. He belonged to Rome. The first lesson of a legionary was not how to kill, but how to endure. For 4 brutal months, recruits trained until they broke or became unbreakable. They marched over 30 kilometers, carrying 20 kilograms of equipment, often under the blazing sun or pouring rain. At first, they were allowed 5 hours. Then the time was cut, the pace quickened, the weight increased. They ran, swam, climbed, jumped, and drilled in silence. Their bodies hardened, their minds became iron. Rome didn't want soldiers who could merely fight. It wanted men who could outlast war itself. Many failed. Some collapsed. The weak were sent home or buried where they fell. Only the strong endured. Forging the weapon. When the body was ready, it was time to teach the art of killing. Training began with wooden weapons, deliberately twice as heavy as the real ones. If a man could master that, a real sword would feel like an extension of his own will. Each strike, each block, each thrust was repeated thousands of times until movement became instinct. Because in battle, thought was death. They practiced with the gladius, Rome's short sword, and the pilum, a heavy javelin whose iron tip bent on impact so it couldn't be reused by the enemy. Precision mattered more than power. A single perfect thrust could end a life. Then came armatura, mock battles fought with real weapons under the eye of veteran instructors. These men, hardened by years of campaigning, were paid double to forge the next generation. Mistakes were punished. Pain was the teacher, and survival was the test. The law of obedience. The core of Rome's military might was not weapons, it was discipline. A legion's strength came from perfect obedience. A soldier did not question orders. He executed them instantly, completely, without hesitation. The man who enforced this was the centurion, commander of 80 men, feared and respected in equal measure. He carried the vetus, a staff of vinewood, both a badge of office and a tool for punishment. Falling asleep on guard, losing equipment, showing cowardice, all could bring brutal consequences: flogging, starvation, imprisonment, or worse. And when an entire unit failed, Rome invoked the most terrifying punishment of all: decimation. 1 man in 10 was chosen by lot. His comrades executed him. It was not merely punishment, it was psychological warfare. A reminder that disobedience killed more Romans than any barbarian blade. Even Julius Caesar used decimation to restore order in his ranks. He understood a grim truth. An army that fears the enemy can falter. An army that fears its own commander will never break. The oath. When the months of training and torment ended, the recruit faced his final trial, the sacramentum. It was the sacred oath that transformed him from man to legionary. Once sworn, it could never be undone. In the Republic, the oath was to the Senate and the people of Rome. But under the Empire, it was sworn directly to the Emperor, the living symbol of Rome's divine authority. The soldier promised to obey without question, to fight without hesitation, and to die without fear. To break the oath was not treason, it was sacrilege. He then received his military diploma, a bronze tablet listing his name, rank, and service rights. It was his life in metal form, proof of his belonging to the mightiest army on earth. With it came his pay, his privileges, and the hope that one day, after 25 years, he might retire with land and honor. But few ever lived to see that day. The Legionary's legacy. By the end of training, the transformation was complete. The farmer, the craftsman, the shepherd, all gone. In their place stood the Legionary, a man of iron discipline, forged by suffering, driven by loyalty. He could march for days, fight for hours, and hold formation even as death closed in. This system was so effective that modern armies still study it. Its echoes live in every military academy, every drill, every salute. Rome's true power did not come from gold or gods. It came from men who obeyed, who endured, who believed. And in that belief, Rome conquered the world. If you enjoyed uncovering how discipline forged the Roman war machine, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and, as always, may Mars guide you in battle.